Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BizDev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I'm David Baxter, your host, and I am joined, as usual, by Gary Voigt, who just got back off of a 24-hour bender on Ticketmaster buying his seats for the Beyonce tour. Are you excited about it? Are you part of the Bay Hive, Gary?
Yeah, Queen Bee all the way. My kids, I'm sorry about college girls, but one ticket, it's pretty expensive.
One ticket up front. Do you get the VIP experience?
I'm going to try to scalp it, though.
I hear there's like a glittery unicorn or something as part of the show. So that should be exciting for you. I know how you do love glitter.
I love unicorns more than glitter, but that's a bonus. Yeah.
Oh, our guest is getting very excited over here. There is dancing.
Pantomime for days.
Oh, that is lovely. So that dulcet tone that you hear is Dave Sroka. He is our guest today. He is the Chief Technology Officer at BEAM Diagnostics. Welcome, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me. This is it's a good time.
I want to dive into some nerdy stuff with you because that seems like right up your alley.
Giant nerd.
So first off, tell me about BEAM Diagnostics. Just give me the 30,000 foot view and we'll dive in later.
Yeah, for sure. So we're a digital health company at our heart. Our goal, we're trying to improve patient-centered healthcare with assessments. Kind of the main thing we're trying to help out with is a lot of times it's very difficult for providers and hospitals to identify folks with a number of mental health issues for a lot of different reasons. They're stigmatized, it's difficult, and providers are overburdened. So our quick assessments try and give a little bit of a guidance with kind of bringing it down to numerical data by making it easy for patients and easy for providers to use. So we take, basically patients take our assessment and it gets fed back into the AHR system, the electronic health records, like Epic and some of the things that you may be familiar with, so that the providers can have that data and decide what to do with it to provide good care.
So you're saying we would use your app to fill out the 8,000 questions before I go visit the doctor, and then they would have that on their tablet? Or,
well, fortunately for us, it's actually like it's about 5 questions. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. So we're kind of part and parcel. We're trying to get into that initial flow where you fill out questions, but our part's really, really low burden and things like that. But yeah, we'd be part of that sort of electronic flow. You sign in, you take your things, you provide your provider with what they need, and then they can provide care. Trying to make basically mental health as accessible as blood work.
Very cool. So yours is all focused around mental health, not just health.
Yeah, mental health specifically for us. That's where we're some particular work that some of our co-founders and advisors have done in this space to really identify a very quick and extremely highly accurate way to assess this in a great way. So it definitely just goes into our mental health, addiction, impulses kind of space, and trying to target and identify some problematic areas that can be helped.
So what do you think of the hubbub and the dreams and stuff of AI diving in with the doctor space? Like the idea that every doctor will be carrying around a gizmo doodad who listens to a patient and can then diagnose them because they've read every medical transcript on the planet.
I think so. For us, and in terms of particular, we're kind of investigating AI as a tool. I mean, for everybody, at the end of the day, AI is just another tool. From my opinion, and this is kind of where I changed my mind in a long time, if you don't have someone behind it to interpret it, we are a long way away from that being able to replace anybody. And especially with the medical space,
sure.
It is really, really challenging to completely replace the sort of medical provider. And the biggest problem for providers is the fact that they're overburdened with trying to make a lot of decisions for patients and things like that. So in my opinion, what we have an opportunity to help reduce that burden with a lot of different tools, AI being one of them. And if we can provide really quick ways to filter the amount of information a provider has to take in on a daily basis to be an expert, and not even just a daily basis, but as medicine changes and things like that, is very difficult. So for me, where I come from is I'm really excited to see what kind of things as an industry, as the medical profession industry, can you use to help it. I don't particularly think it's possible to get away from having human involved in that to interpret that. Because right now we have a billion tools. Like AI, we've gotten to the point where AI is the hot buzzword for us. We've been working with data analytics. We've been working with all sorts of machine learning for a while now. This isn't really new to help us interpret this. It's just a nice little shiny marketing term for us. I mean, obviously there's a lot more that goes into it, but it's a really nice way to package it and make it appealing. We've been working on this for a while, and the end goal is to make it easier for everyone to do what they want to do, and that's provide the best care that they want to provide and do it quickly, easily, and move on to the next one and not be exhausted at the end of the day. So for me, I'm excited to see what we can do with that.
Where I see AI becoming useful in across industries for development, and I mentioned before, almost I think our entire team now uses a thing called Copilot, which is basically a tool that Microsoft has released through GitHub that helps you create code. You can type a little comment saying, I'd like to loop through the blah, 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 and it'll generate a blob of code. I talked to a new developer and they were like, should I really lean into this? I was like, absolutely not, because it's not very good. It is helpful. It gets rid of a lot of the monotony of typing. But like I was working late last night on a client, and it suggested the right if statement, not to get super nerdy, but what it did was, instead of, are these two things equal? It said, are these two things not equal? And I just said, I looked at it cursorily, just on a glance. I said, yeah, that looks right. Boom. But it was completely backwards. And if you don't know what right looks like, boy, you're in a real bad spot. And I'm thinking for medical, I can't imagine in my lifetime, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there will be some massive jump, but I don't expect doctors to be replaced. But I could totally see, even like a mental health expert, if I'm a psychologist and I'm sitting there talking to my person, I've got my notebook like I always do, I'm taking notes, but I've got this little gizmo sitting here recording the entire chat and transcribing it and all of that. And it notices it's, let's say it's using AI to highlight key terms like trigger words or whatever, things that are scary or very poignant or whatever. And it says, I'm going to summarize your last hour session with Joe over here, and here are the things that I called out on it. I could totally see a psychologist looking at that going, compare that to my notes. Did I miss anything? Right? That is super powerful.
It could eliminate some of the guesswork of like doing the research prior to. That's the one thing that I think AI and the health industry is going to benefit from AI, is doing a lot of that research work. And at least, like you said, summarizing it to the point where they can make educated decisions, but not have to spend the hours and hours and hours finding those summaries themselves. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a great example with the psychologist is that it also a benefit will allow them to be present in that patient interview and really be receptive for the things that maybe you might miss while you're too busy trying to write or think about it. And you can be like engaged and present in there and have that benefit too. So, I mean, I think that's probably going to end up being the sweet spot. I mean, there's literally no way. I mean, aside from like we've talked about the feasibility of sort of replacing doctors, it's not there. That we have an entire world that we haven't talked about with ethical concerns and a lot of things like that of what we're talking about here, which is a very, very personal and very important sort of way that right now, I mean, we're not there, and it's hard to see like getting to that level of like validity for sure. But I think that what you said was a great example of it. Takes away my example I was going to give too, just to kind of bring it home in terms of that is you have to have the fundamentals. GitHub Copilot, perfect example. Without the fundamentals, you can't parse the data and know where it's going wrong. And I would use a rock climbing example, and I don't know how many people rock climb, but like long story short, when someone's climbing up a rope and you've got a device to help keep them safe, there's a lot of old school ways to do it and you hold it. There's more modern devices that are automatically break it, and you can get by without knowing how to use that. But if you don't have the fundamentals, you're not keeping your climber safe. And so you need to know those fundamentals before you lean on the Grigri, which is a more automatic device, which is really safe. But without those fundamentals, you will not be making smart decisions, and you won't have those muscle memories and those things that will keep your climber safe. So these are all really, really good examples of why. I love it. And actually just tying it back to in terms of like a sweet spot for me, I use it. I use that. I lean into that as an idea generator, because, it's always easier to edit than it is to create. And so just throw them in like, oh man, make the bad version first. That's great. That's one of the empowering thing that I've fallen into like the past couple of years. It's like free myself up. I'm going to write the worst blog post I've ever written in my life. I got to get started. I'm stuck. I'm going to just write some absolute garbage. I know it's garbage. I'm writing garbage on purpose. And then from there, I'm like, well, that was garbage. And I'll move on. So AI is kind of taking that place of like, hey, go write some garbage for me. I mean, and it's not garbage because there's actually some really reasonable feels okay. And then you go and you kind of can adapt it.
In there.
It's really nice. Yeah. And it's a good idea to bounce off or just to get the creative engines flowing. So that's a super good example.
I want to switch gears. This is what I do. I switch gears. Gary reins me in when I go off on a tangent, and I switch gears. That's what we do here. You, in your profile, you mentioned that you are a UI UX designer, and this is a passion of yours, which of course is me and Gary Like that's our Voltron power. And I wanted to nerd out about that a little bit because one, rarely does anybody even know what that is. So I figured it's a good time because every startup, every entrepreneur, every business needs to think about UX, even if they're not in tech. And I think that this is a subject that's worth diving into a little bit and chewing on, because it's going to, whether you sell soap or you're selling software, good user experience is key. This is, and what I mean by that is I need a good box, right? I need a box that tells a story about my product. That's your user experience. It's a physical thing, but it's still a user experience. Now, software is much more clear. That's how they're using it. But tell me how you got into UX and what you do in that world.
So that's actually a really good way of, I was going to say, it's going to drive me crazy in general. I know I'll get to answer your question for sure, but it drives me crazy in general when people don't want to value that as a thing. But I'm like, because the user experience is a broad term for me as well. So everything that I talk about has a user experience. And it's literally for me, how does the user interact with your product? And like, what do it is your product. I mean, for me, and I know it's like you can get into a lot of fuzzy. For me, it's your product. Everything else is a way to get to that. But without that as the filter, as the lens, you can't make a good product. So how I got into it in terms of that, it just was the thing I always cared about. Like I always kind of drove into that, and to a detriment of like, so my history, my degree is not in computer science. It's in business information technology at Virginia Tech, which was essentially like kind of half
mine.
at Tech too. Or
mine was management information systems, and so that they don't even have that major anymore because that's how old I am.
They changed it right when I got in school. I started in management science, ended up in BIT. So
there you go.
But yeah, so I mean, I come from this different background, so I don't have the hardcore fundamentals. I've had to learn those as I went through my career. So, but by virtue of that, that's not my home base. So for me, as I was going, like, I don't care about that. Somebody else can go figure that. I'm not passionate about that. I'm not, that's not the part that I'm chewing on. Here's the part that I'm chewing on is this part, and it kind of comes to, I'm a visual person. I'm more on the artistic musician side of things. And so that always tapped into that part of my creation brain where it's I'm creating a thing. I'm putting colors and shapes and patterns together in a way that's pleasing both aesthetically and usability. And so then once I kind of fell into like that, I was like, I really, 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 really like helping people in general. This is my MO, whether it's in work, whether it's in not, I want to both help people and empower them. So I'm always the guy at work who I'm going to go out of my way and I'll take my whole day helping you with your unit of work, and I'll come after work. This was a bad pattern. I had to practice. After work, I'll finish up my unit of work. And the next day, and like, that's a valuable day. Or I don't ever get to my stuff, which has been a challenge. But if I help somebody out, then that's great. So that leads into, I want to go out of my way to make it easy. Actually, I was just talking to my coworkers the other day with some of the units of some things we're working on from a compliance standpoint. And I'm like, if I need something from you and it's ever hard or complicated or unclear what you need to do, full stop, don't go any farther, come talk to me, because my goal every time I do something is I want it to be easy to dive right in, figure it out, and use it without complication. So at the net end of the day, I have made your interaction with whatever it is that I'm creating a net positive. You come away feeling better about it than it is. And I like, for the specific example of sort of compliance, which can be a gross, uncomfortable thing, if I can make that fun and easy, oh man, I've had a great day, right? Because that's a tough problem. But that's just kind of like my general philosophy of like why that appeals to me is that's what UX is you're trying to deliver a net positive experience for your person. Why? Because why are you making something if it's not great to use? But also at the end of the day, your product is what people think about it. And so they're gonna either hate it, which you never want. They're not going to tell anybody about it. They're not going to have fun using it. They're not going to come back if they have a choice. That's your work product. You want people to be like, this is so great, you got to use it. Tell people. You've created evangelists. They've had a great time. They keep coming back, right? So that's kind of why I love it, is like it's a constant challenge to be like thinking about other people, empathizing, challenging yourself to like put yourselves in other people's shoes, which can be difficult, and getting the job done. And that's the job. And then I feel validated and I feel good because I've gone out of my way to make something great for somebody else. That's kind of like the net of why I do it. I lost all the other questions because that's my favorite one of like, why does it appeal to me? Because it gets into so many things.
No, that was great. And the answers were right on par with the things that we've been dealing with lately too, with UX and dealing with clients as well. So
what I find is the number one struggle that clients have with UX is that they think it's pretty stuff. And so we have to go to this vocab lesson to say, no, there's pretty stuff, that's design. And then there's UX, which is experience, which is how they move, how they flow, how they actually touch the product. And I think a good analogy for that is if you go and you open a product, let's say a box for headphones, and it's a cheap manufacturer, it's going to be in this hard to get into, rough feeling kind of cardboardy box, right? So it might have a gorgeous picture on it. Maybe it's got a sunset. It's got the headphones are floating in the sky. It's just a gorgeous picture, which would be hilarious, by the way. But it has a nice design. The colors are all there. But when you pick it up, it's spiky and rough on your fingers, and it's hard to get into. That's your user experience. That's a good way of explaining it in terms of non-technical. So now imagine an Apple pair of headphones, which, because these guys have mastered this. When you open an Apple pair of AirPods, right? It's in the design is actually relatively straightforward, right? It's just a white box. You all know it's a white box, but it feels nice. It's got this soft touch to it. You're like, you want to touch it. You want to roll your hands around on it. And then to get into it, there's always a little strip that you can just pull, and it takes all the packaging right off. You don't have to go get your scissors or use your teeth or any of that crazy stuff. And then when you get inside of it, instead of it just being the product sitting there, it is there, and usually it's in a little pouch of some sort, little plastic bag that, again, is easy to open. You get to open it, and then you get to the software, right? When the hardware and the software meet. That is user experience in an everyday fashion. And you can see this across, now that I've said that, and it might click to some people now, you're going to see that everywhere, because there are people who do it really well, Apple being a great one. And there's people who do it really badly, which is a lot of the products you order on Amazon. I mean, even Amazon, look at their cheesy stuff, right? 5 years ago, every box you got into required like a hatchet and a chisel to get inside of the Amazon box. And now they have all these pull tabs. Now they have all these easy opening things, which is probably great for all the people stealing Amazon products. But it's so much easier, even though it's the same cardboard, right? They don't care about that aesthetic, but it is a better user experience. So you're like, oh, Amazon, I love that. I want to buy from Amazon, as opposed to maybe Target, where I still need a hammer and chisel. So again, just examples where it doesn't have to be software. Everyone talks about UX as software, but it's everything. And there's another term. I don't know. Do you guys use a CX? Have you heard of CX?
Yeah, I flipped around, like, so I've been around through so many different iterations of like what people want to call it or not in terms of CX, and now we have both UX, we have developer experience too. Everybody wants to get an X on the end. I like it.
Yeah.
I like separating things out.
Buzzwords.
Well, CX, I love the idea of CX. CX stands for customer experience. Mm-hmm. And that is not only, it takes another step back. And again, if you're selling something, a physical product, whatever, it's important to think about this stuff even early on. But customer experience is every touch point a customer has with your product. That's including buying it, the actual product itself. That's the UX stuff that we've been talking about. But then the support after the fact, how good is that? Do you have a knowledge base? Do you have a bot? Do you have a real person? Is that person in their actual country so that conversation can actually happen? All of those are part of CX. And there are companies, we are not one of them, but there are companies that's all they focus on. I would love to get to that point, but we're just not there. Because they're like, it's almost a consulting kind of, let's take a step back and look at your entire offering, whatever that offering is. And it's a holistic approach to making sure that everyone is enjoying your product, is having a good time. Whether or not they're, my phone broke, I'm mad at you. Okay, let's make that a better experience, because that support, we're here, we care, and we're going to make your problem better. I'm sorry your phone broke, by the way, Yeah.
No, I mean, it goes a long way. So, I mean, like, one of my favorite sock brands, I'm a runner as well. One of my favorite socks brands, Swiftwick. I'll throw them out there. I love them. We're not sponsored by Swiftwick. We should be. I had a mistake. I made a mistake. This is not even a bad problem with the product. I made a mistake. I was like, my bad. I ordered the wrong size of socks. Let me start the return process. And they were like, you know what? We're just going to send you another pair. Don't worry about sending them back. Now, obviously, it's like the socks are not that expensive, and the shipping it's in their best interest. But at that point, I was like, wow, thanks. I'm thrilled. I'll buy socks from you all the time. I love it. So it was just such a nice, and that was all purely, I don't think that they even have like a customer support department. I'm sure it's a company that's really good at that. But at that point, that was part of my experience with the socks. I love the socks even more. They're great socks. They feel good, but now I'm a fan. I'm a big fan because I was like, of that great experience. And it took nothing. It was nothing except valuing it and saying this is important and this is worthwhile.
Well, it's also because they can't return socks. They
Right.
don't want socks.
They don't want them back. Right. I mean, they were unopened socks. They could feasibly get that product back. They weren't used. It wasn't anything, but still at the end of the day,
Gotcha.
right. You know, we're talking about a very small, and in terms of the economies of scale, it's nothing to them, but this is not this 5 years ago. That's not what happened. It's not like they're like, hey, just take it. They're just like, too bad. You know, that would be the experience. Be like, all right, sorry, you bought the wrong socks. Good luck. I mean,
yeah, man.
So
should go buy the right one this time.
Yeah, it is. Why don't you try buying it right? God.
I was going to say today you could basically buy whatever you want, whenever you want, just, you know, with your fingertips in front of your face on your phone. So it's not the product that's going to differentiate the companies. It is the experience that is going to differentiate the companies, which is why now we're seeing a lot more focus on what used to just be called branding, or from, you know, everything from the brand to the brand story and how that brand evolved organically and turned that into the user experience, the customer experience, and everything. Like that whole experience package is becoming just as important as the product you're actually trying to sell.
And I'll back that. I mean, I'm really happy to see us getting to the point where we valued the thing enough to give it names, to give it differentiated names, so that when you get it a name, then you can focus on that. You can talk about it. You can have a communication layer that like makes sense. I mean, it's a good example of, it used to be part of branding. Branding is a nebulous thing. It was nuanced. It's a whole big thing. Customer experience, user experience are all defined pieces of that can be broken off and focus on and reduce that sort of confusion or nebularity. And anytime you can reduce the amount of question marks down to a limited thing, and again, this is a software engineering mindset that I come from, but I'm always like, anytime you can reduce the complexity of something down to just the parts that are complicated and focus your energy on that, you've made yourself better, because then you can be really great at solving that complexity. And don't make everything complex. Everything doesn't need to be complex, and that's what like naming it does for me.
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid is a tried and true form of UX. And another way of saying it is, in our world, is how do we remove taps? How do we remove clicks? That's good experience. How do we anticipate what the user is doing without crossing the line and where we're no longer helpful? Like we were just talking to a client this morning, as a matter of fact, and one of the users on their admin team was like, when I'm done typing, I want it to automatically move to the next text box without me doing anything. And we're like, no, you don't want it to do that, because if you just pause for too long, now you're confused because your cursor is not where you left it. And yeah, they're mad at you, and they think we did something wrong, but we did that. So it sounds handy, but in the reality, it's not. So BEAM Diagnostics, did you found that company, or were you just added later?
I was fortunately enough, I was allowed to join up later. So the kind of history is, I used to work as a contractor with another firm as the point of contact on that, and they reached out to me and we decided to go full time. So I worked with them for about a year and a half building out the product, and then joined up full time to kind of carry that journey. It was founded by Dr. Sarah Snyder and two other doctors who had worked on the research, and then our CBO were kind of the first initial people, and kind of pulled people from there. So I'm the most recent addition to the team, I think.
Nice.
Which is nice. I've been there since I've been full time there at BEAM since October, but I'm the newest member of the team, so to speak.
So how big is the company, like people wise?
There's 5 of us. Well, there's 4 of
Nice.
us full time with 1 part time. One of our other team members, she does full time work, and part time she's also a professor at Virginia Tech as well. So splitting time, but 4 full time teams are 5. We're working on hiring. We're kind of at the the classic startup place where we're like, we need some more people, but we need some money to meet the investors, and investors don't want to spend money. So I'm working on hiring right now, actually, to bring on a couple more technical team members, and then we'll have we've got a hiring strategy for this year when we have a couple of funding sources coming through, so that'll be nice. But right now it's just 5 of us. 5 really
nice.
I feel very fortunate to be a part of the team, where it's the tightest team that I've been a part of in terms of mindset, philosophy. We really have a really good foundation. So I'm grateful every day, every time I get to talk to them, because it's really I'm kind of like, oh wow, how did we end up being such like a unique mindset match? Because we have a huge, it's like actually, then I don't talk about like age in our industry as an industry, but we have a large gap between our youngest and oldest members, but we're all kind of right there in line with business philosophy. So it's really, really, it's a great opportunity. I'm very thankful to be a part of it.
So are you guys? It sounds like you're still on a runway. You're not making revenue yet to support itself.
Mm-hmm. We're doing our first series of funding right now. We're waiting for. We have a couple of like seed funding round, like mini seeds, and then we have that. That's kind of where we're at.
Very cool. So that puts you, if I'm correct, you guys are still in what we would call the slog, right? Where you guys are still, your job is to tell everybody that you exist and why you're better than everyone else. You don't have your own gravity where people are coming to you yet.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a perfect example. Right now, we're at the place of telling you why we can solve the problem that you have, and why do you have this problem at your care, essentially, and why we're great at it.
So how has the slog been for you? We talk about this. This is like my drum. I love to hear how people, because it's hard. It's always hard. It's never going to be easy. But how are you guys dealing with it, and how are you getting through it?
It is hard, and I've fortunately for me, I've done it so many times that it's kind of the usual thing. That's kind of my role. I'm a little bit of the gray beard of the team, where I bring that I can bring the experience, be like, yep, it is hard, and we'll get through it. And in terms of how we get through it with this company, it's really fortunate, and nobody believes me, but I'm like, y'all don't understand. Our team that I mentioned, we're so close knit that like literally every week, everybody's bringing themselves up. Somebody always steps in to kind of be like, we got this, we're going to do it, and kind of rallies around it. And we have a lot of really positive people around us. So it's actually kind of the easiest of all the slogs I've had, in terms of I don't feel like I'm doing it by myself. I have done that a bunch of times where I feel like I'm pulling people along, especially with my own business, where I'm just like pulling on the mantle and contractors and trying to pull things along. So for this one, it's actually really easy, really hard. It's a difficult industry. We have difficult problems we're trying to solve. We have a lot we're trying to do. This is the most complicated moving pieces that I've had to orchestrate at the same time. But on the flip side, we've got such good balance and good team chemistry. So every week, I mean, it's really, it comes down to it. You can make it cheesy, and it's just about positivity. But more specifically, it's about looking out for each other. And more specifically than that, because those are all just like, that could mean anything. Like every day we're looking out, have you taken vacation? You seem kind of burned out, go away. And then when people go away, don't talk to them. Like we don't, but we make fun of people when they check in on Teams when they're supposed to be on vacation. They're like, what are you doing? And we don't talk to people. Basically, we kind of strongly encourage that. We have like the unlimited PTO kind of thing, which can all be problematic, but we basically just challenge people to look out for themselves. So, we kind of work to keep that energy level going, because, at the end of the day, it's hard. If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't have to solve a problem, because it'd be solved, right? If it was easy, it'd be solved. So you're choosing to do startup stuff. The startup choice is to go in and do hard things. So you're committing to that slog. So if number one for me is you committed to it. So great. That makes the slog easier, because you made a choice. When you've made a choice, you've been empowered. And for me, when I've been empowered, that makes it easier to kind of accept that. So you accept that the slog is the slog, and you get it done. And then from there, we pick each other up. And from there, it's just trying to be efficient with your time where you have it, to kind of keep from piling on more weight onto the rock that you have to push up. Because I know I say it and it sounds like, oh gosh, why would you do it? But when you're picking a startup, you're essentially picking the Sisyphus pass, where you're pushing the rock up. It's going to fall down on you. It's going to roll you over a couple of times. It's going to go all the way down to the back of the thing. You're going to see the end of the hill, but an investor's going to kick it down at you at that point. Like, I mean, there's a million ways that it can go down. And there's at least in my experience, or by lean in, I've accepted there's zero ways it's going to be amazing, first time, nailed it. There's going to be at least one slog, probably a couple slogs, right? So you just lean into that and just keep going.
You're in a unique position with, I guess, the app and the industry, to where you almost need feedback in order to make sure you're on the right path. So I'm wondering if you have maybe like doctors' offices, or just a small group of, like, you can call them user testers or whatever, or just medical health professionals that are kind of helping you along. And then what is your strategy to get this noticed more in that market? I'm sure it's probably just a lot of networking, but I want to hear it from you.
That's, I mean, it's like, you know, and that fortunately, you kind of stated all the things. It's exactly like every other industry. So yes, we do have a small sort of beta tester client, sort of, so to speak. We spawned out of it. They're kind of our early test group, are also going to be consumers. So we're able to kind of iterate in a safe way. That's actually been a really great, powerful, safe way where we get good feedback from them. We also have a team of providers, professionals that we interview constantly to try and basically understand our users. So we do user interviews constantly. We get feedback. We've kind of made it. We've made it user focused. So we do constant interviews with them to get their experience, especially with this medical space. So that's kind of the two kind of the main ways we're able to get momentum going. In terms of getting noticed, it's just about reaching out. We've got a bunch of pots in the fires. The nature of the industry is it's a really long burn to get into it, because rightfully so, it's very guarded, and there's a lot of IRB and approval process that you have to go through. So you march through it and you get through that. So we have a couple of other tickets in the fire, but you have to get so far ahead of it. Fortunately, it's not like other markets in that it's a pretty known commodity. You go talk to hospitals, you go talk to the people you can get in, you get connections and networking. So we're able to leverage kind of some of these things. We're also talking with some other medical companies.
Yeah, you know where your potential clients are. It's not, you're not trying to find them. You're just trying to convince them.
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, our essentially our users are the hospital systems, and then we have kind of sub users, but we're not trying to get patients to use our product. We're kind of B2B. So it's a little easier for us on that aspect, but for us, it's basically getting in the door with the hospital. So leveraging the network we have and just making connections, as well as connecting with other similar companies to talk about potential partnerships and ways we can leverage other stuff. So that's kind of like our networking, getting in front of people. Our biggest challenge is actually not getting people to use it. It's getting people to put it in the places that we need so that people can use it, so to speak. It's kind of a little bit more like that model. But I mean, that's the pattern I've always used to make it more broad is, number one, get something that works pretty well for your MVP, obviously, like find those key features to get something in front of somebody, and then find a group of trusted people. And I've leaned heavily on friends and family all the time, and just core people. Fortunately, I broadened my network for a while where I can be like, hey, go test this out, and you get that good feedback. But, you know, find the people that you're going to get high fidelity feedback from. So we have that in a group of doctors and users that we're going to get direct. We know exactly where to get, and we know it's going to be valuable. So it's really, you don't have to parse through a lot of garbage. So get those high quality people and people who are patient with using a product in development. And then from there, going and just talking to people about it. For me, this is a lot of my strategies are all kind of, I've come to appreciate how like uniquely specific they are to me in terms of like, I'm going to go out there. Here's my MO. I'm going to break myself down. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be so excited about what I'm talking about because I don't really have a lot of time for like subterfuge or whatever. So I find stuff that I'm really excited about, and I just go out and I talk about it. I use it. I share it with everybody, and I kind of have a little bit of an infectious energy generally when I'm working on stuff that people are like, wow, this guy's really excited about this thing and won't stop talking about it. And, you know, you just kind of use that in all the aspects of whatever thing is most needed. So I've been able to kind of like be, okay, what do we need to do here? Let's go do it, and just kind of apply that filter. But I do think there's a lot that people can take away from that, because more often than not, I see people trying to find this persona or this actor or this thing that they need to do, whether it's like we're talking about an actual product, you're trying to manufacture avenues. And I think there's a way more, and I haven't really figured out what that means for like UX or tech or whatever, but I think there's a lot of power to honesty, and instead of trying to convince somebody of something, almost like finding the truth in whatever it is that you're trying to do, so that you can just put it out there and be honest about it, because everybody responds to honesty. At least I think so. And anyway, I think everybody responds to this honest passion, and they actually reject dishonest passion. And so finding your pathway to that is a really kind of key thing for this and you know, it ties to get back. How do I get through the slog? I just believe I'm going to get through the slog, and I try to convince myself I'm going to get through the slog. No matter what, your teammates, the people you talk to, they're going to feel that. They know if you believe in it, everybody's going to believe in it eventually. You got to keep believing in it. The hardest part of the slog is when you lose belief. That's what you lose belief. You're like, I'm never going to get out of this mud. This mud's forever, man. This swamp goes on. I'm never going to get out of there. And then all of a sudden you're stuck in the swamp of nothing, and your horse is sinking in. And this is the only never ending story reference I'll make today, but like eventually you get to this place that you have to get yourself out. And it's really, so you have to kind of like constantly load up that you're like, I'm going to get this day, I'm going to go and go do it. And whatever, at that point, it becomes a very individual thing, because you have to ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do to get myself into that mindset where it's like, let's get it, let's support my team members, let's bring people up, and let's go tackle this thing.
Yeah, go find Atreyu and Falcor if you didn't catch that reference earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't though.
So,
no, oh man, so sad.
The one question we ask every single one of our guests, and you were talking about earlier when you were saying you had experience in doing this before. So in your experience, what would your top 3 pieces of advice be for any entrepreneur, new business, or startup coming into the market?
I kind of touched on them already, but my number one piece of advice: stay focused, but stay flexible. So that another way that I've kind of tried to talk about with other team members in the past is having strong beliefs loosely held. Get in there, find what it is that you're going to be doing. I always come back to the power of threes. Find your the 3 focuses for your week, your next sprint, or your whatever methodology that works for you, and stay on it. But then be ready to pivot that. That's your greatest power of the startup, is that flexibility, and no one can replace. No one can take that away from you. So that's my number one: stay focused but flexible, and have strong beliefs loosely held. Whichever one of those like key mantras kind of sticks in there. Believe really strong into it, but be ready to change. Number 2 is don't get discouraged. And I said it earlier, if this was easy, you wouldn't need to solve the problem. You wouldn't need to make this startup. You wouldn't need to do this. It's going to be hard. So rid of that. It's going to be hard. It's going to be discouraging. You're going to have the slog. Lean into that and surround yourself with whatever you need to do to make it through those kind of challenges, because it's going to be hard. If you get discouraged, it's even harder. So just stay up on top, commit to being a hard job, and you can do hard things, and you'll get it. The third number thing is that I always is like, don't be afraid to wait for your perfect team members, because at the heart of it, whether that's 3 people, whether that's 5 people, what makes or breaks this early startup is having the right people around you who are going to do all those other things, all these things that I've talked about in the last like 5 or 10 minutes. You need to surround yourself with people that are going to live and breathe that and respond to that. Right? You can't do it by yourself. It's impossible. I've tried. It doesn't work. It's different. It works. I'll take that back. It works. It's really, really hard, and it wears you out. So don't be afraid to wait. Those people will come. If you stay focused and know what you're looking for, you will find the people that respond to that, and be bold and driven, and just be patient to wait. Don't be in the flip side of that. So you be patient. You'll surround yourself with the right people. You might have to kind of do it yourself and find that focus, but when you're focused, they'll respond. If you build it, they will come. Whatever, if you want to get to that level. But the flip side of it is, don't be discouraged when you lose someone valuable. So once you get through that, what's going to happen is someone's going to move on. It can be really discouraged and be like, oh man, I finally found all the people, and this person, for whatever reason, needed to move on. Great. Every time that happens, it's an opportunity to find somebody even better, because you have an even clearer focus and understanding of your job. So don't get discouraged again if you find a person, but they leave. You'll find more people. So being patient that you'll find people, it's another thing. It's a lot of discouragement. It can feel like you're never going to find the right people. It just doesn't want. You'll kind of start losing faith in with your product or whatever drove you. Be patient, and it'll happen.
Yeah, patience is a good one. That's one we don't usually hear often. Well, we hear similar ideologies, just not usually that focused on the word patience. But yeah, patience is definitely important. So Dave, if anybody wants to learn more about you or more about BEAM, where can they go to find out more?
Best place to learn more about BEAM, our website is beamdiagnosticsinc.com. You can kind of check us out at our website, and we're kind of active on LinkedIn if you find us where people learn it. Find more about me, again, LinkedIn. You can message me anytime. I love if people have questions to kind of hit me up there. That's a really great way to do that. Used to be in the past, I was a little more active on Twitter and things like that, but I really don't do much with that, because kind of the best way is to just do a little outreach on LinkedIn if you want to do much of it. But if you ever have any questions, I always put this out to everybody I talk to with startups. If you ever have a startup question, please talk to me, even if it's just to be like, I don't know if my idea is any good. I don't know, whatever. Just reach out, and I'll do my best to kind of try to help. Like I said, I like to help people out. So
now we'll include those links in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
So that anybody who does want to learn more can reach out. They'll just click the link any place that they can find us. And speaking of finding us, if you want to leave a comment, question, or learn more about us, you can email us at hello@thebigpixel.net. You can leave comments or questions underneath this video, or you can reach out to us on any one of our social media platforms. And we're on all of them. Even David's favorite, TikTok. He loves it.
No. No. Hey, did you hear Montana just banned it? So
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
That'll go very, very well.
I'm sure all the teenagers
All
in
right.
Montana are definitely going to listen to that rule.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dave, for joining us. It's been a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I've had a great time talking to y'all.
Yeah, your passion for the company definitely comes through. Your excitement is definitely, like you said, you lead with your excitement and people are going to pay attention.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today, except Gary. I'm not really excited he was here. We look forward to talking to you all next week.
I got to go find that
Have a
sparkly
good one, y'all.
unicorn.
Take it easy.
Sparkly unicorn.
Bye.
See y'all.